Hi everyone, this video is going to show how to add an enemy into a third-person map. So the enemy is basically going to, if they see us, if the front of their character is looking at us, then they're going to turn towards us and start running towards us. The first thing we're going to do is go into our content drawer, and I've already made a folder with my name in it, and so I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and I want a character. So this is the first time we're using a character, and basically it just gives us the ability for that type of pawn, that asset, to walk around. So that's what we want. So we're going to call this blueprint enemy, maybe a name. And we're going to double click it to edit it. You'll see that we come up with a mesh that already started, like I always call it like the hitbox. And what we want to do is we want to add an item to this. And so we're going to add to the mesh. And the reason why I chose the third person is so that way when we click on this, you'll see that we have some choices. And so what I'm going to do is just going to take the SK mannequin just so that it's pretty standard, and I'm just going to take that, use my location buttons, the translation, to get it into the more in line with the little box that we have here. And then I'm going to use the rotation one, which is E, and I'm going to, because I want my character to face the arrow, right? So we could turn it around so that way we're facing the arrow, so that means that's the way forward. And now what we want to do is add a pawn mesh to this. So we're going to pawn sensing. So PAWN sensing on the left under components. And what this is doing is, you can see there's like a bunch of little lines out. That's how it's sensing stuff around it, is those lines. The vectors are like telling you that this is the way it's looking. And you can see it has really good peripheral. And on the right hand side over here, you can see the different information. Like you can change the thresholds for all of the different sensors. And the one we want to change at the moment is we're going to select this and change it to 60, just to kind of limit the field that they can sense. So they have a little bit of blinders on, so they have to be right directly in front of the player to be able to see the player. And then we're going to scroll down here to the bottom, and we're going to see on pawn, we're going to add an event, and this is going to open up our events graph. And what we want to do here is that this is where we're going to determine if we've seen the player or not. So we need a variable, right? A variable is just a placeholder to store information. And so we just want to have that be a variable that we're keeping, that yes, we saw the player, or no, we didn't see the player. So what we're going to do is create a new variable. So on the left, we just click variable, and we're going to call it sees player. And it's a Boolean, right? Because it's just true or false. Yes, it sees a player. No, it didn't see the player. And then I can click and drag this into my event graph, and we want to set the field. And so this is on pawn. We're going to set that, and it's going to be, we want to change it to true. So by clicking this box, we're saying yes, we're setting it to true. Yes, when the event happens on pawn, that it sets the variable to true. Now what we need to do is we're going to create our own function and our own little process of what happens when we see the player so that we can follow them. So what we're going to do is right click, and we're going to say add custom event. So that's what we want, add event, add custom event here. And we're going to say follow player. And now that we have this, we can have this be from when we see the player, right? We set the variable, and then we're going to come out here and we're going to say follow player. And so that's just, this is the functionality of this, but we're going to make the event down here where it's just for simplicity. And what we want to do is we're going to create a branch here. And what this is going to do is give us a statement where we can say if and else, basically. So we're going to check the variable, right, that we had created here, the C's player. And so we can just click this here and we can get C's player, right? So we have this variable, and if it's true, it's going to do one function, and if it's false, it's going to do another. So we can drag that down. So if it's true, we want it to move to the player. So there's actually a function for this called AI move to. And we can click that, and you can see that there's some parameters that we need to pass in. So one of them is pawn, and that's basically just itself. So we're just going to say self here. If I can spell self, and we get a reference to ourself. And so we're passing ourself into it, the object, right? The enemy, they're passing themselves. And then their target. So we're going to pass the target, which is going to be the get player character. Right, so this is where if ourselves and we see the target player, then we want to move to them. So this should set it up so that when we see them, we move to them. And again, it's always a good idea to save all to make sure that we're testing it. You know me, I always want to go test it, but we need to do a step before we can go test it. And that is we need to add an environment where the enemy can move around in our environment. And to do that, we're going to click this little, we're going to quickly add to the project, and we're going to add all classes. And this one, we're going to look for nav. So if I spelled it right, NAV, mesh bounds volume. And what this is going to add is a little box that comes in our window. And I'm going to change it to the translate with the little arrows and bring it up. And what we want to do is grow this little box to fill this whole area. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to switch it to, or move it to the kind of center of this rectangle or square. And then I'm going to put it into the scaling option, and I'm going to scale it out. And I probably don't need it to be that tall, so I can scale that part back, right? I just need it to be cover the whole and rectangle that we have here. I might want to move it around a little bit so that it fills everything. And you could test this by hitting the P button, as in Paul, and it will change it'll add a layer of green. And what this green means is this is where the enemy player can walk around in this area. And so it's a preview. So you just hit toggle P to get it to turn off. So now we have the navigation pane in our window of where the player can go. We have the we've created our enemy blueprint class, and now we have a couple more things we need to do before we could get our player moving, but we could test it just to see. Oh, we forgot to add him to our screen. So let's do that. We'll come in here and we'll click and drag our enemy into our world. So you can see like he has the vectors coming out from him and everything. So we could have that. He's facing away from us, which is good. So then we could go turn. And so you can see now he is following us and he's chasing us around the room, right? So yay, we got part of this done. So now what we want to do is we might want to give him some animation, right? Because he looks a little silly just kind of floating, scooting by. I guess it could be a ghost, right? With no leg movement. But we want to give him some animation, so we're going to try that. To add the animation, what we want to do is go back to our content drawer, and we're going to create a new item, and it's going to be in animation and blend space. And when we click on this, we're going to get a new option. So we're going to find the skeleton that we used. We used the SK mannequin. And I'm just going to call this BS enemy. So we're blend space enemy. And I'm going to double click that to edit it. And you'll see we get a picture of our mannequin. And what this is allowing us to blend some animations together. So, right, there's already animations created for this character that are in the system. And we're going to blend some of those together so that we can create a, so it'll chase us. It looks like it actually moves. So what we first want to do is we're going to come over under the horizontal axis, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to give it speed. And we're going to change the maximum access to 600. So this just means that it can go from 0 to 600 on speed wise. And we want to look for, on the right hand side under Asset Browser, we want to look for the different animations that we want. So like if you want an idle one, so we could click and drag the idle into this little graph bar at the bottom underneath our mannequin. And so we're going to click it and drag it and have it all the way on the left. And so that's just what the mannequin looks like when they're idle. And then we want to add a walk. So we can click on one of these and drag it into the middle here. And if you hold down the control key, you can make your character look like what he's doing. So this is when he's barely walking, and then he kind of speeds up. And then we could also look for run. And we could click and drag that into the screen too, and drag it all the way to the end. And use the control. You can see that this is what they look like when they're, slowly walking, and then they're running. We're going to come up and save all just to make sure that we have everything saved. And we can get out of the blended space now. We don't need that. And what we need to do is add another blueprint. We want to right click in here and click animation and animation blueprint. So this is going to basically be the way we control our skeletal mesh. So we're going to add that. So again, we're going to find our SK mannequin skeleton, and we're going to create. And I'm going to call this blueprint enemy. And we already have a blueprint enemy. So this is our animation. So we'll call it animation. And so now we have that here. And so we can double click that to edit it. And you'll notice it has like a little guy who's like running. What we want to do is add our item to this, right, that we just made, the blended space. So if we look for blended space enemy on under animation preview, we should be able to click and drag that in here. And we're going to connect this. And you'll see we have a speed coming here. And what we need to get this value. So we're just going to promote to a variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into events graph and get the value of what we want this to be. So we can do a compile and test, and you can kind of see and like that it's flowing into there. It compiled green, so we like that. So now we're going to go to the event graph, and we have our event graph here where we have our try to get the pawn owner that's here, and we're going to, from this, we need to get information about the enemy, right? The blueprint enemy that we made. So we're going to look blueprint enemy and get information from that. And from that, we want to get the character movement. And so now we have our character movement. What we want to do is add from here we want to get the velocity. Yeah, you might have to scroll down to the bottom, right? We want to get the velocity of our guy. And right, we can set the speed, right? We want to set the speed, and we want to convert this velocity to the speed. You'll see it's not compatible. So what we need to do is we need to make this the right value. So we need it to be a we need to be able to make these work. So what we need is the length of this. So it's a vector, so we're going to get the vector length of this, and then we can have that value go into our speed here and set our speed. So now we're going to hit compile, and you see we got it green, yay. So it does look like I forgot to do a couple things. What I need to do is connect my enemy to my value so that we make sure that that's the speed that gets updated. And then I need to connect the blueprint to my enemy, and you'll see how it's shipping. So that's just showing that it's animating. You hit compile, make sure that it works. And the last step that I need to do is go over to my blueprint for my enemy, right? So this isn't the animated one, but the blueprint one. And we need to change the animation to use the one that we just created. So we should look for blueprint enemy animated, right? And so this is just going to be that when we want it to be animated, that's what the blueprint we just made should be done. So we're going to hit compile, and we're going to go up and hit file, save all. We'll go back to our here, and we will hit play and test it out. And hopefully when we run in front, look at that, he's chasing us, and we can get out of his line of sight because, right, we made him a pretty narrow line of sight, but we could get him to chase us now and be animated. So we could use this, right, we could have a collisions thing set with him, we could work, figure out some combat things, but for right now, this is all I have for you, is how to have him chase you. Hope you find that helpful, and have a wonderful day.